As for right now, the music you're hearing in the background there is supplied by our engineer, one of our engineers. Actually, his name is George Engineer. This is our big engineer downstairs. That's not his real name. He just uses George Engineer to let people know he works in radio.
What's his real name?
His real name? Antenna. Look out.
Best known to audiences worldwide as the wisecracking and infallible Colonel Hogan on Hogan's Heroes, Bob Crane was a beloved radio personality and television legend whose star was on a meteoric rise for most of his life.
But during the early morning hours of June 29, 1978, Bob Crane met an abrupt and tragic end. He was brutally killed in his sleep, and to this day his murder remains unsolved. More than 40 years later, the crime continues to spark widespread debate and speculation over his killer's identity.
In the decades since his death, Bob Crane has become more notoriously known because of his murder and the sex scandal that came to light during the investigation than any of his career achievements or personal virtues.
So who really was Bob Crane, and why does his life story matter?
I'm Linda Groundwater, co-author of Bob Crane, The Definitive Biography, an actor and former New England radio journalist.
I'm Dee Young, co-author of Bob Crane, The Definitive Biography, and the former assistant business manager for WICC Radio in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
And I'm Carol Ford, author of Bob Crane, The Definitive Biography, owner and manager of the Bob Crane Life and Legacy website, and the National Radio Hall of Fame campaign, and a professional author, editor, and podcast producer. Our work on Bob Crane's behalf spans more than a decade, and together in this series, my co-authors and I will share with you Bob Crane's true and complete life story.
We'll take you back to Bob Crane's humble beginnings in Connecticut, exploring how his love of drums, music, and radio led him to becoming one of the most successful radio personalities of his or any era.
We'll explain how Bob Crane was driven to become a serious actor, turning down countless offers to host game shows and television talk shows, including The Tonight Show.
We'll debunk the myths and half-truths surrounding his addiction, providing clarity, perspective, and a deeper understanding of Bob Crane as a human being.
And we'll delve into his personal life, focusing on his family, friends, and colleagues, and how they not only impacted Bob Crane's life and he theirs, but how so many of these amazing people directly impacted our lives as well.
If you think you know the complete story of Bob Crane, think again.
This is the Flipside, the true story of Bob Crane. Flipside, the true story of Bob Crane, is owned and produced by Carol M. Ford Productions. All rights reserved. No portion of this podcast may be used without written permission. The drum cadence at the start of this episode is the introduction to the Hogan's Heroes March, and performed by Bob Crane. The aircheck of Bob Crane following the cadence originally aired during The Bob Crane Show on March 27, 1957, over KNX-CBS Radio in Los Angeles. For archived episodes of this podcast and to learn more about all of our work about Bob Crane, visit our website at votefourbobcrane.org. That's vote, the number 4, bobcrane.org. You can also subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, our hosting site Spreaker, and other various podcast delivery services.